Singapore signs a new deal for a new Covid-19 treatment described as game-changing, and it comes in the form of a pill. Lee Hsien Loong and his wife have sold one bungalow and put another on the market for $16.8 million. And two local names make the world's 50 best restaurants list, including one for the first time. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Haryanto Diman, and remember to subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. Singapore has signed a deal for a new drug to treat Covid-19 developed by Merck and described by some doctors as a game changer. Called molnupiravir, the pill will be available here once it's received authorization and approval for use. Data from clinical trials suggests the drug works the best when taken early in the course of infection. And it's said to be effective against all known variants of the virus, including Delta. The drug may also reduce the chance of hospitalization or death by half